Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from OurSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Tuesday, October 1st. It's a new start of the new month, and Notre Dame is entering their bye week ranked number 15 in the nation, according to the AP poll. Um, a little slow climb here. You would think they'd rise a little bit more, right? Like you beat a team ranked higher than you. And some teams below them lost. I thought they'd have two ranked wins. I thought Texas A&M would get ranked in the top 25 by the AP, but it doesn't look like they were. But still some impressive wins so far this year, and obviously one terrible loss. So we're going to talk where Notre Dame is going into the bye week and where we think things are with the offense, the defense, and how things are set to move forward. We'll dive in just kind of our final thoughts on Louisville and that game and what we saw in that game, and then how we project things kind of going forward for the team with injuries and, what type of team they're going to be for the rest of the year. So that's going to be the show today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear today, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so whatever it is, we're going to go live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing. Their bamboo dress shirts are back online. You've seen them in all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. They are made from proprietary fabric, cooler and softer than cotton. It's the best shirt for any occasion. Go to esqclothing.com. Use ISD15 to get 15% off your order. It's ISD15 to get 15% off. We got some people here. Raymond Horton, what's up, Greg and Jamie? How are you? Spooky season. AJ Sullivan's calling it. John Imperial here. Blayberg is here, and Tyler Borgman is here. Jamie, it looks like we both got home okay from South Bend. That's great. I was telling you before the show, I thought I was going to get sick. Yesterday, I didn't feel very well, but today I feel better. Seems like sleep is good. Sleep is good for everyone.
Turns out they're right when they say sleep is good for you.
All the people who say you should really sleep, that is the answer to all of your problems. So, Jamie, how are you feeling about the Notre Dame football team going into the bye? Where they are, you think 15th ranked? Do you think that's fairish? I think it is, just based on where it's at. You could definitely, maybe one or two spots higher, but I think everyone around them is kind of slotted correctly. But where do you think the Notre Dame football is going into the bye week, and where things kind of stand?
I think it's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, really, who cares about like the teams that are like? There's so many like one loss teams that are kind of like in a big group together that
Yeah.
I don't even know how you'd ranking them, which just shows you why rankings are so stupid at this time of year. Like, um, things are just going to work out as teams like play the season and lose and play against other teams like Michigan. They beat USC, which that's a good win for them, and that's great. Whatever. But like, uh, Michigan, as with their kind of schedule, and they're like 10th right now. Like, they're not running the table, guys. Like,
Yeah.
Michigan is not going to run the table. Like, they could very well lose to Illinois next week. They play Oregon. They still play Ohio State. Like, they're gonna have at least 3 losses probably. Like, and they could just lose to anyone really because they can't really throw the ball at all. Like, people get on Notre Dame for their passing offense, but Michigan's offense is way worse. And like, like Mizzou and Miami for undefeated teams look like frauds. Like, so there's all these things that are going to happen in terms of like where people are going to slot. And I think you just kind of let it play out as the season. And and I was talking to Mike off air after we recorded Power Hour yesterday, and it's really a wide open year. Like, there's really because even if you watch that like, we watched the end of the Alabama Georgia game together, and I don't think either of those teams are close to kind of what they were. Like, it was an entertaining game, but it's not like the 2 years ago, those teams that were in the national championship teams. Like, I don't think they're as good as they were then. Like, they're not quite at that level, right? So, um, and if those teams aren't at that level, really kind of who is like Tennessee probably looks the best out of everyone, and you still got to let it play out because, yeah, they beat Oklahoma on the road, and you're like, that's a good win, but it's like, I don't know, like what they're gonna have to play a lot tougher teams than Oklahoma. Oklahoma doesn't look great, right? So it's just it's all gonna kind of play out, and I don't know, like there's a lot of different things that could happen where. So Louisville, for example, like I mean, I came away like way more impressed with Louisville after the game.
Yeah.
And they play a tough schedule the rest of the way. I would say like they don't have it easy the rest of the way by any means, but it's not out of the question that they, you know, run the table. Like they play Miami at home. They play Clemson on the road, and that's probably like the game that I would say, I don't know if they're going to win that game, but like
Yeah.
Clemson is not a perfect team, like not by any means. They're playing well right now, but it's like, well, they're doing when they're kind of the old thing that they're doing where they play in the ACC schedule and they're not that great. The ACC is not that great.
Yeah. Question from Brendan McAlinden of OFD, Earn 5-Star Pod. What's up, Brendan? Denbrock's opening script led to the cleanest and most well-orchestrated drive we've seen all year. How can they translate that as the game progresses? And just to kind of build off this, we've noted opening points against Texas A&M, opening touchdown against NIU, opening touchdown against Purdue, opening touchdown against Miami of Ohio, and then in this game as well.
Well, no, not against Miami of Ohio, but
what happened?
That was the only game where they didn't get open.
It was the only one? Okay.
Yeah.
So 4 of the 5 opening points. Good drives there. So to add to Brendan's point, like the script has been good, right? And this is not uncommon in college football. But how does Notre Dame kind of build off that as the game kind of goes on, and because it looked like in the first few drives Notre Dame had a really good plan. Obviously, the second drive they started the ball at the 50, and so that obviously helps, right? They had a really good zone beater play. They had a couple zone beater plays, a cover 3 plays built in. I showed that. I showed that yesterday. Maybe we should just show it again today, Jamie. Where they put the this is the touchdown play to Jaden Greathouse. So obviously they had this zone beater play. They had another play where Bo Collins was a decoy. They sent him up the post. Jaden Greathouse comes on the over route and he hits him there when Riley Leonard was rolling to his left. So they had those plays built in. As the game goes on, Notre Dame becomes less efficient. We've seen this in a few games now. So how do you think they can build off of what the script is showing them?
I think first of all, this is a great question, Brendan. I think that's because everybody looks at that and it's like, well, why don't they script the whole game? Because that's how there are teams like that have a lot of success. Most teams have success in script, but it gets harder because people see your script. They see the plays and they adjust, right? So
the defense you're talking.
The defense adjusts, yeah. So it's one of those things where there's only so much you can do. It's like there's only so much new stuff you can put in a week. Mm-hmm. That's like definitely different. So like one of the plays on the opening script was they motioned back into a pistol look, right? And they ran play action off of it. Well, they hadn't shown play pistol the whole time. So I guess you could run more like pistol stuff or whatever and then do different things of it. But if you haven't put all that kind of stuff into the game, or maybe you weren't running it well during the week,
the game plan.
Into the game. Yeah. Like you can't, it's not as easy as just saying like, okay, well now we're going to do pistol stuff. Right. So I think it's hard. Like there was a really good quote from Miami's defensive coordinator, who was actually the defensive coordinator at Marshall when they upset Notre Dame. He's very good coach. Like he obviously coached a great game that game. The reason he like kind of moved up to getting the Miami job was because of how great his defense was at Marshall. And what what he talked about is his experience in terms of like adjustments or whatever is like you got to obviously make adjustments during the game, and that's something that Al Golden has talked about frequently. But what you do is you prepare all week and you put so much into preparation, and then they come out and they don't run any of the stuff that you expect them to. And then if it works, you're adjusting to that. If the stuff works for the offense, you're adjusting to that and then just doing that throughout the game. And if it doesn't work for them, they're going to go back and run all the stuff you prepared for before, after halftime.
Mhm.
Like that's the kind of thing, right? So it's very much cat and mouse, and it's I think it's one of those things where it's a lot harder because the defense gets more of the advantage as the game goes on in terms of getting a beat on you. Like you can
Mhm.
get certain looks in terms of like seeing what you can test things and see uh to set up things like Notre Dame scored on that final drive.
Yeah.
They only had 2 passes of 30 plus yards heading into the game, right? Um, they had 2 on that drive, right? And those were both plays that were set up by earlier things they did, right? Like obviously how they were playing the rub routes, that set up the Jaden Harrison play, and how they were playing that RPO was that's what set up the screen. And obviously that RPO was like, that was set up like that's weeks and weeks and years basically of how that kind of set up, but they ran it earlier on that drive too, right? So there's stuff you can do to counter off it, but um you also have to hope you're getting to the right call. And there's just only so many. You can't. It's like everybody wants. Hey, call the good plays. Call this. Why don't they call more of those touchdown plays or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's just very hard to get into that because you have to set things up throughout the game, and really what you have to do is execute at a high level the whole game to be able to have success. And then right now, like, it's very tough to execute at a high level against a really good defense when you've got basically a backup offensive line in the game.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's difficult. So there's only so much. I would say that Mike Denbrock, if you look at like the totality of everything, and obviously like there's things you can pick apart, especially the NIU game that you can pick apart with him. Um, but I think he's done a really, really good job of coaching, like basically with one arm tied behind his back with a lot of the stuff that they've been given this year. And to win, to score enough to win in both the games and come up in the fourth quarter with like drives and plays that you need in these games against Texas A&M and Louisville, that's stuff that we just weren't seeing enough before from like previous iterations. So I think that is huge, but also to like think about how young the offensive line is and how all these backups are playing and all this kind of stuff's there. And they're 39th in havoc rate against,
Hmm.
which is kind of incredible when you consider, because usually you have a young offense line, you're like, man, you're getting smoked, you're getting sacked all the time, you're getting forced fumbles, you're throwing picks, you're getting pressure, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they haven't, and it's because of how he's called the game. And I'm sorry, I kind of went off into a tangent into the other direction, but it all kind of
Hmm.
works together because you're kind of limited by what you can do in terms of like some of this stuff. Because I also think one important thing to realize, and you see it with Notre Dame's defense too, is that the pass rush keeps getting better and better as the game goes along, because you there's only so much you can do. Is like, hey, I'm an offensive tackle, I'm pass setting. Well, your set is going to look very similar each
Yeah.
time, and then they're able to do that. I'm going to do this counter to you. We're going to throw this at you. We're going to do all this. And it's like just a lot harder for the protection to kind of like
Yeah.
stay great the whole time, which is why you see a lot of sacks and pressure late in the games.
Yeah. Like we kind of saw the same dynamic with Louisville, right? Like they had a good opening script. They had a good start to the half, right? Like I noted a bunch of times, like Notre Dame's defense was they were getting shredded. right? They were. I mean, they were giving up, like, if you take away the 42 yards lost on the fumbled punt, which I think is fair to take away because that's not an offensive play. Like, they're punting, right? So that's a special teams thing. But the numbers go against the offense. Like, they're sitting there at 8 point whatever yards per play. You know, they ended the half at 7.4 yards per play. Like, they had a good plan for Notre Dame. But then the second half came and they just weren't as successful, right? So we saw the same kind of dynamic. I think to piggyback off of your point, and Brendan, to kind of get into the question of how do they translate the script into better play on offense. It's just, in my opinion, I think it's when you have a young offense, the script is always going to be better because you've practiced it a bunch, and to your point, Jamie, that they are adding something that the defense hasn't seen, right? So you're practicing for things that Notre Dame does. Notre Dame does different things, even any sort of new formation. Like, I can't tell you, like, people. One thing that people don't realize is, and I think people do kind of get a sense for this, like when because we watch Notre Dame play all the time, and fans, the people watching the show are probably watching Notre Dame all the time. Like, how many times did you can say, oh, they're in this formation with this personnel? I'll bet you they're going to run this play, right? The defense has so much more foreknowledge about their tendencies, formation, down and distance, spot on the field, personnel. Every play you can kind of narrow down pre-snap, like they're going to run either like 1, 2, or 3 type of play off of this, right?
Yeah.
But when you have a script, anytime you come out in pistol, the defense is thinking, we don't know pistol stuff.
Yeah.
They could do kind of anything out of this. And so they are on their heels. And so you're always going to be, you're always going to be more successful in that situation. And the thing that Notre Dame did in this game is something else I tweeted out at halftime is Notre Dame did more with their opportunities than Louisville did in the first half. And that is why Notre Dame kind of ended up winning the game. I mean, Louisville has had 257 total yards at halftime, 7.4 yards per play. You're looking at 14 points and you're losing, right? And I made the point that, like, man, this is Al Golden's defense. Like, they're not going to keep doing this. And they didn't, right? So I think it happens both ways. When you have a young offense, and this is kind of the point that I was trying to make yesterday on my show, when you have a young offense, there isn't a ton of things that they are going to be good at consistently throughout the game, just from the nature of having a bunch of new people out there. And obviously guys like Chris Mitchell and Jaden Harrison and Bo Collins, these are all seniors, but they're new to this offense. They're new to Notre Dame. They're new to each other. They're new to Riley Leonard. They're new to everything. This group has not worked together that much. The offensive line clearly has not worked together that much. They are going to struggle with consistency all year, probably, right? Now, that is not foregone. It could get to the point where they become a more efficient group as the year goes on. That could happen. Probably it's going to be a situation where they're going to have 2 really good drives and then 2 kind of ugly drives. I mean, that's what we've seen from Notre Dame a bunch so far this year. And I just think that's where it's going. And so we have to understand, like, yeah, there's going to be times when it looks ugly. You pointed out, and it shows up on film, the offensive line just completely got destroyed in the second and third quarters. I mean, they just got dominated, right? There are so many plays where it's like, no, this has no chance, right? Because Louisville adjusted, and then they're good, and then Notre Dame, struggled there, right? You got to call plays where it's like, I don't know if we can protect. Like, a lot of the stuff we want to hit with explosives and things like that, can Notre Dame protect in that situation, right? That's a question Mike Denbrock's asking himself. So, again, the reason this is a really good question is because it led to a really long discussion about it. And so there's not any one thing. There's a lot going on. This is actually a good point. We're maybe 5 years away from AI impacting play calling. Feed the formation into an algorithm, and it spits out a play calling response. That's probably where the sport is headed, to be honest. That's a good point. Um,
Yeah, here's why I don't think that it's ever going to be that
oh,
um because if you look at there's already so much study that goes into tendency, and AI really you know um is will give you the automated, like they'll give you what it's 2nd and 9, we're throwing the ball. You know what I mean? Like there there are things there that they like. I mean, I I'm sure whatever. Maybe when Skynet approaches, we'll have an idea of they'll just be able to break tendency and do different things. But that's like not really kind of like what AI is right now, right? So it's like uh I don't think it's like, I mean, there are always going to be uses for AI and different things that will, I mean, it's going to be a part. I mean, it's already a part of, you know, our
yeah. What?
life or whatever, right? But it's just like, I think it's in terms of the one thing about like with play calling and all of that, like I could almost see like AI defense being the way to handle it rather than AI offense.
Yeah. Um, my we don't have to go into this too much. My take is anytime we say AI is not going to affect X thing, it ends up doing that. Um, uh, but whatever. We don't have to get into it. Let's see. This is a good question from Rajon. Just kind of goes into what we want to talk about. With all the injuries, can we fairly judge Joe Rudolph? And what about the offense in general? I think Joe Rudolph's coaching his butt off right now.
Yeah.
He has by far the toughest job on the Notre Dame staff right now. Um, you you they cannot do anything on offense. Zero things if he doesn't get the offensive line in a very tough situation to be functional. And it could truly be so much worse than it is. So much worse. And he is doing one of the better jobs just getting these guys ready. They beat Notre Dame beat Louisville and Texas A&M, the two best defenses on the schedule. He with a makeshift offensive line, freshmen, new starters. He has done a remarkable job. They're not perfect, right? I'm not going to say he's been perfect or they've been perfect, whatever. But when you look at the degree of difficulty on this, he's coaching his butt off. What do you think here?
I think he is absolutely coaching his butt off. And, Raymond Harden, mentioned that they've had issues all season picking up stunts. It's like they've had new guys playing the whole season, even
Yeah,
before like, Shrouth and Craig Hutter. Those are still new guys. Like everybody's new. Like and really too, like the side that has had more trouble picking up stunts has been the left side, which is pretty clear why
massive
why why
penalty.
that's
Yeah,
been. I think that there's you can't to say you can't judge it. I mean, I get where Rajon's coming from, but you can only judge it by like what you said is like they should be horrible. Like they should be non-functional. Like last year, Stanford, was extremely young, they were pretty much non-functional up front. Like they
yeah,
had to do like crazy wide splits just to try to like trick you into different things to try to like have any kind of success of running the football or spreading you out and doing all these kind of things. Like this is not that. And obviously Notre Dame has better players than Stanford, up front. Like they've recruited better and all that too, but there's just not uh it, it's just so hard. You never see young offensive line, period, any level of football. You're like, hey, these are all young guys. Everybody's new. That never equals to a good offensive line. It never does. It never does. And obviously Notre Dame doesn't have a good offensive line right now, but like they have an offensive line that is helping them survive. And like that would normally not be the case. And that's so you got to tip your cap to Rudolph, but you also have to tip your cap to Denbrock, who, and it's something, Greg, we were kind of talking about this before the game on Saturday, that really good offensive coaches, they find a way, even with bad lines. Like you have to
yeah.
find a way. And that's kind of what Notre Dame did. So even though like their line was getting, they were blitzing the crap out of them and they were doing all this kind of stuff, where it was like, man, it was just relentless. And, to go on top of like the penalties and all that kind of stuff too. So really the only way that they would have been able to create those explosives in that last drive is to say like, hey, this is stuff we schemed up that we saved here at this point. Because that was basically like, the Harrison play was like, that's the read. That's it. It's like, there is no second option there. It's like, they're throwing it there.
If it doesn't work,
he's throwing it there or he's throwing it in the stands.
Yeah.
That's it. Right. And then the same thing with the screen. It's like, we're throwing the screen. There's nothing else here, right? There is no counter to this play. We got to hope that this is the right call and they do it and whatever, right? So, and it kind of had to work that way. And if you look at it, like during the game, when Leonard did straight drop back, because obviously they moved the pocket with him a ton, and they had to, right, to kind of slow down the rush and do all that kind of stuff. But when he just did straight drop back, it was like, one read, this guy's not open, and oh my God, here's a guy on top of me. I gotta move. I gotta do something, right? Like that's kind of how it was.
Do you recall another Jadarian Price fumble before Saturday that maybe Notre Dame recovered? Because I looked up on PFF, he's only credited with one fumble, and that's the one on Saturday. And I thought, I don't know if PFF is tracking total fumbles or just lost fumbles. I was trying to think of another one.
I think they do just whatever. Yeah, it's not lost fumbles. It's just fumbles.
It's total, right? So he only has the one. I don't think you can outright pull a guy for one fumble.
I think that was a reaction to forward fumbling before.
For sure.
I think that's 100%. That's what happened. Like, I'm not even sure if that was it. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're fine.
I'm not even sure that it wasn't like Marcus Freeman going to McCullough, like, to not get this guy, like, because, when they're already, they gave them 14 points there, right? Like, because of those fumbles, right?
Totally.
So I think, like, I'm going to guess that was, it was basically, that was the main reaction to it. Like, if Love had fumbled later on and it was just like a fumble palooza or whatever, right? Then, maybe then Price gets back in the game after, right? But like, I just think it was, a lot of it was based on reaction, which is also why I don't think, like, unless it's been a problem in practice, which we don't know, then I would imagine that you'll see Price go back to kind of his role that he's had.
Yeah, well, that we'll see on that. I don't think he's not a fumbler. So like one fumble, because look, Jeremiah Love fumbled. We don't have to pretend. Jeremiah Love fumbled going into the end zone.
Oh yes, yeah.
Against Miami, going into the end zone, like that is, if they lose that fumble, that is just as costly as Jadarian Price. It's points off the board. And points on the board, right? Like you're losing points. They put him right back in the game, which is fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't think you can have a weapon like Jadarian Price and be like, we're just not playing you because you made a mistake.
Considering the lack of weapons they have.
Exactly. Like you I don't think you can do that. And then this is just my opinion. Again, we don't go to practice. We don't do all those other things. The Devin Ford thing is like, look, you have a small specific role. You cannot fumble, right?
Yes.
Like I understand that. Jadarian Price, in my opinion, is different. And look, players are different.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with you. I just think the reason why it was because of like, how the stakes of the game and that happening before. And I think that's probably what led to it. But I agree with you that he probably deserved a chance to come back in the game.
Yeah. And, in the press conference afterwards, they asked Marcus Freeman, what do you have to do or in these situations? He's like, reload, right? You got to go move on. It's like, well, you didn't reload with a Jadarian Price, right? So, like, it's just, that I wanted to talk about that because people have been opining on that situation, and I wanted to give it some thought, and I was like, you know what, like I don't know that he's fumbled before, and I don't think it's I don't think that was really warranted, but so wanted to touch on that. Coach Humph says, question for Jamie and Greg, in your opinion, with the 105 scholarship expansion, I think it will benefit Notre Dame due to how great the current staff is at identifying and developing recruits. How do you see it?
I mean, they're obviously going to take more guys, but I think you got to be wary of it because, it, even though it's more, so you could say, hey, you can take more chances.
Mm-hmm.
At Notre Dame, it's not easy to just run off guys. That's not like kind of what it is, right? Like for a lot of the guys, a big part of choosing Notre Dame is like they want their degree. That's still a thing, even though there's more guys who are prioritizing football and all that kind of stuff. That's still a big part of it, right? So, I don't know, like, I mean, I could see Notre Dame. It will be a bit of an advantage to get some more guys, but I think you could see like the Luke Talix, the Jordan Faisons, like those are obviously savvy moves that have helped out already, and you could see like I mean, Faison certainly has been a player, and Talix looks like he's gonna be probably a pretty good player eventually for Notre Dame. But I think like you don't want to go overboard with it and taking chances, because then the more like risk you take of doing that, you could end up with guys that don't, and then you might whatever. So maybe like guys you could see like senior year, kind of like guys who explode. Like I think that could be a thing. If you can get some more of these guys, and like certainly kind of what they're doing with, I mean, they were forced to do it with the wide receivers this year, but I think that could be like, something you could see them do a little bit more, and it could work out. But I think it's going to be interesting because I mean, teams are always under 85 anyways. No one is, very rarely are you at 85 exactly. Like, so I think it'll be like, I guess Notre Dame will probably be around like 90, high 90s to 100 will probably be, and then they'll just kind of work it out from there.
Yeah. Here's a fun question from Jason Z. Now that it's October, who has been your spookiest player so far this year? Both spooky good and spooky bad. Who's your spookiest player?
I don't even know what spooky good and spooky bad is.
The spooky good. Like who has been like scary?
Like they've
good.
been scary. Okay.
Scary good.
Whew. I mean, I'll say that. So I guess in like a surprising way, or just like, I mean, I guess I would just say just scary good. I mean, I'd probably just say Xavier Watts. Like, just even though that's not like, he's just been that dude. I think he's been better than he was last year, and obviously he was outstanding last year. I mean, he's having a monster season already. I think he's
been better this year.
Yeah, I think he's been a better version of the guy that he was. Last year. Spooky bad. I don't really want to. I don't know that I don't want to choose it. I don't like. I'm just sorry, guys. I know people like to whatever, and I understand it's probably like in jest of the thing, but I don't want to highlight. Oh man, this guy's been scary bad. Or spooky. Like this guy's been so bad. I just don't want to do that. Sorry, I don't want to pick. So I don't want to single anyone out as.
I'll answer that question this way. I don't know that there's, and I truly believe this, I don't think there's been any one player that's been like just straight up bad this year. I truly don't. I think the spookiest thing, especially in the context of the rest of the season, I think the Riley Leonard pass against NIU is the spookiest thing that's happened this year. He has not thrown a ball that bad the whole year. That is like when you look at the rest, because when it happens in the moment, you think to yourself, well, he can't throw the deep ball at all, actually. And ever since then, every deep ball has been either a good pass or like the
Give him a chance
interference
at least.
penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything that ugly from him the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Either before that or after. That is the spookiest play of the season for me. Just like I can't believe that happened, truly. And I think we'll probably go the rest of the year without seeing anything like that.
Yeah.
It was not a harbinger of things to come. And I think part of the reason why it was so bad in the moment is A, because of how costly it was, and B, because I think people saw it as, what does this portend for the rest of the season? And that was an anomaly.
Yeah.
That play, which
Yeah.
is good, but just shocking.
I do, because John Imperial mentioned Jordan Clark. He's very much, you could put him with Xavier Watts, the spooky good call, John.
That is a good call.
Yeah, he's been great.
Envy Irish says Osbury, spooky good.
He's been good.
Envy Irish is going with KVA. Like, none of these are bad picks.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with you found your hat. Everyone's obsessed with you and your hat.
I have,
Jimmy.
that's
fantastic. Actually, I kind of like it. I kind of like the bit.
Yeah.
Spooky good to me. I'm gonna go with Jeremiah Love.
He has been great.
People, like, okay, because he got so much hype in the off season, right? It's just kind of like, well, everyone said that he would be good. Like Jaden Greathouse got a lot of hype too, and he has not been spooky good. I don't think he's been bad. He certainly had a good game on Saturday, but he hasn't been like mind blowing or anything.
Yeah.
And I don't think Bo Collins has. But Jeremiah Love to me has been like, oh, not only is he like the man, he is better than I thought he would be.
Yeah.
Even given
certified dude.
Yeah, the way that you guys have spoken about him. I don't want to say he's like a good blocker, but he wants to be a good blocker.
Oh, he is very much. He's like, he wants the smoke.
Yes, he wants the smoke. He will throw himself in there. There was a play on the opening drive before his touchdown where he has to do a seal block on Ashton Gelati.
Yeah.
And
he's bringing every bit of his,
he loads up and he throws his shoulder into that guy and he makes the block and he makes the play work. It's a really good run by Ray Leonard as well. But it's like it's not a question of want to with him. He wants to. One of the things for me is, and we've talked about this. We talked about this at the game. I don't agree with this thing where you got to take him out of the game on third downs.
You have to mix him in at some point, because even if he's just a decoy, like it's just like one of those things. It's like, it is, first of all, Notre Dame 98th in third down right now. They're 98th in third down conversion percentage. Not great.
No,
not great. Like, that is something. And obviously there's all these pieces to it. It's not just like, it's the blame isn't on Devin Ford or Aeneas Williams. So I'm not trying to say that, but I'm just saying, like, it's when you consider, everyone knows third down, a critical down, like very, very important.
Yeah.
Why would you take him out of off the field? Like, as much, like, I think, Mike, correctly pointed out, like, Aeneas Williams, I mean, he's not afraid of the smoke either, right? Like,
he is not. No, he is definitely not. That is 100% correct.
Yeah. So, very impressed by just how physical he plays and how he wants to be. I think that, you just want to have him out there as an extra guy to just like, even if your means taking off a receiver or whatever, like, really, because teams should have to worry about him. Teams should have to worry about him. And that also too is, someone brought up, Mitchell Evans. He needs to get on track. Yeah, he does. But I mean, you got to remember, he basically didn't play a full game the first, 3 and basically 4 games, really. He didn't play like a full game. And he, has done like, well in his limited opportunities. It's just that, especially in this game, like they can't really throw it to him like and do the stuff that they were doing with him last year because they can't protect as
Right.
long to be able to do that, which is like one of the reasons where before you could say like, man, they're not throwing the ball deep enough, they're not throwing intermediate enough. And like, well, this game it was like, yeah, they wouldn't have time to do it. Like that's why they only had 5, pass attempts that were above 10 yards.
Yeah. I just, if I'm the defense, you're taking Jeremiah Love off the field willingly. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that. I don't want to have to deal with him on this third down. Get him 3rd and 4, and they take him off. Like what is going on? Like it doesn't need to happen, and it can't happen. It just like I'm of the opinion that it should not happen. This has nothing to do with Aeneas Williams. Truly, I think what he's doing is fine. I think what he's been doing, I think he gives great effort. I think most of the time he's doing exactly what they're asking him to do. This is not Aeneas Williams criticism. It is you have one of the best backs in college football, period, on your team. He is the best skill position player on your team. Do not take him off the field for another player. It's just that simple. And it's
like crunch time in basketball. You're not taking out your best guys.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
You don't go offense to defense for Steph Curry. You just you ride him out with
great call
with your guy. Jason Z says 12 snaps for Jalen Sneed on Saturday. I think the thing that is surprising, I guess, and maybe the frustrating thing is when it's 4th down for the game and it's Logan Thomas, Howard Cross, Bryce Young, and KVA rushing the passer and not Jalen Sneed.
Well, he did rush the passer in the second half. And I do want to say this about Sneed. He didn't play. I mean, he only played on 3rd downs in the second half of the game, right? Basically from like early in the second quarter on, he only played on 3rd downs. And he did a pretty good job rushing the passer. Like he was, he had actually one really great pass rush, but so I mean, yes, it is like how he wasn't out there. That's probably not great that it's, that he wasn't out there in that spot, but he was in for most of those spots. I think the thing is, it's pretty clear that he is way too inconsistent as an inside linebacker. And so, one of the big runs that they gave up in the first half was, pretty much directly on him. Like he did a really bad job on it. And he basically jumped out of his gap to try to avoid a block rather than. And I think one of the things you see, especially with like Bowen and KVA specifically, but even Osbury, who's not the biggest guy, and he's not as physical as Drake or KVA, but he will attack a block.
Yeah.
And you have to. In order to play good run defense, like you have to, because if you pick a side, I mean, you better friggin' make the play. Like that's it. And if you're wrong, you better be right by making the play.
Yeah.
And the thing is like on that play that I think it was the 27-yarder that, and then he basically got taken out because of it. Literally everybody else up front did their job, was in their gap. They did the, nobody dominated or anything like that, but everybody else did exactly what they were supposed to. And it should have been a 3-yard run. And then it becomes a 27 because he jumps and he made the block easy for the center and whatnot. So I think that, I mean, as frustrating as it would be for him, and obviously you see like he made that one sack in the game where he chased that, shut down in space. And that really is like one of those own plays that like he might be one of the only guys in the defense who could make that play. So he has that. But that is like a specialized play, and he has to become a better inside linebacker if he wants to kind of play. And right now, those other guys are better, and obviously Kaiser is better than him there too. So I don't know. It's tough because he clearly is better than he was last year, but he still doesn't recognize things as quickly. He isn't, he's not the biggest guy either, so he has to recognize things quicker and be the aggressor a lot of the times, and it's just not there from him at this point. And I thought really actually like that A&M game, I thought he did a better job, but I think basically since then it hasn't really been up to that level.
Yeah, I think he has a similar problem to Jadarian Price, frankly, is that if Jeremiah Love wasn't around, then Jadarian Price has the ability to be like a top type running back, right? But he is around, and he does all the things that Price does, and some of it a little bit better, like his feet in the hole are just better. They are. He's a better tackle breaker. Like he has more wiggle, he's a better receiver, right? And this isn't to say anything about Jadarian Price. Like he's a good player.
Yeah,
this is like
a bit better, and
this is the type problem that like you should be having at Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Jalen Sneed's problem isn't so much Jalen Sneed. It's that in comparison, because KVA, who made a better pass rush move in the game on Saturday than KVA did? Nobody. It's a special play, And in addition to that, KVA does all the little stuff too.
Yeah.
So for the coaching staff, it's like, we want to play the guy who's doing all the right things, and he's really good. He's a really good player, and so it's just. But it is a situation where the coaches for both players need to. We talked about this on Saturday in the post game. Like they need to figure out a way to get these guys involved. They're too good. They have too much talent to just not be a part of it, right? Look, obviously, everyone's talked about it, right? Like Jalen Sneed left the field. Matt wrote about it. It's out there. I've seen it on Twitter, so people are, it's public
people
knowledge.
Saw it, yeah.
Yeah. He was obviously upset in the moment, right? He leaves the field while your team is celebrating, and they're woofing at the opponent, and you're leaving and going to the locker room. You're not celebrating with the team. He's obviously unhappy.
It's not great, yeah.
And I'm not judging him for any of this. He can do what he wants. I'm just pointing it out. Like there's something amiss here. I would not be shocked if there was something amiss with Jadarian Price. He was pulled from the game. He didn't in the biggest game of the season at home.
Yeah, you got to manage the guys.
Yeah, so Notre Dame needs to figure this out. It is something that has to be, like you said, to manage it, and they need to take care of that situation. There's a lot. What were we going to say?
Well, I was going to say if we want to kind of transition it into, because someone asked way earlier about the Viper stuff, and I mean Sneed can't play Viper. He's too small. He's not like. He wouldn't hold up in the run game or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? But they kind of need Jalen Sneed on third down, like especially because, man, it really sucks that they had Botello had just obviously was on a rocket ship of how he was playing at the beginning of the year, and Boubacar obviously is a weapon. Like he was going to be and continue to get better and better. And you had those guys, having those two guys on third down is like, oh my gosh, like that's a problem. Right. And, hopefully both are back fully healthy next year and doing their thing or whatever. But like, you go from like having two of those guys to having none of them. So, that's how like Logan Thomas all of a sudden goes from like, hey, you're going to get in this garbage time for 7 plays against Purdue to be like, hey man, we need you in this big game to rush the passer. And I mean, Logan Thomas, you could see the man, he's got some nice traits and stuff, but it's going to go, he's got to go. And I will say too, like, I mean, there are some things you can still see, like the rawness a lot with Bryce Young, and he plays out of control. But I saw like a couple of things for Bryce Young in this game where I was like, whoa, yeah, like,
yeah,
you're progressing, like, so I really think, he has a chance to be a guy for them as the season kind of goes on too. But they're going to kind of need those guys. They're going to need Snead. KVA is going to have to rush off the edge. Like, that's really what it kind of comes down to. And man, Tui Halamaka has like been way above, like, he's playing way better than he ever has. Like, so that has been big for them. I think, like, I mean, he was a guy too, would have been like unfathomable that he would have played on third down before. And now you're like, well, maybe if he keeps playing like this, then he should, or whatever. And as Blayberg said too, they need Josh Burnham back.
yeah,
He's clearly, because they had to put him in the game. He came in at Viper towards the end of the game, because they were like, we just need reps, like, just give us some reps, because Tui Halamaka had been playing so much, and he was limping around, like, he was not good. So hopefully Burnham is good for 2 weeks from now, and he can play against Stanford, and then he's just good the rest of the way, because they really do need him.
I have so much respect for Junior Tuli Halamaka. So much. Okay, this is a top 100 type player out of high school. He's going to be your Mike. Then he wasn't Mike. Then he was the Will. And then they moved him to Viper. And then you have Jordan Botelho. And then you have Boubacar. He is third team. Early in the year, what is his role on this team? Getting no snaps. I'm just going to put it out. Let me check it out here, because I'm going to look him up. Let's see. Snaps. Snap counts. Did not play one snap against Texas A&M. 0 snaps on defense. 0 snaps against NIU on defense. 18 against Purdue when Botelho goes down. 21 against Miami, Ohio. 48 against Louisville. Third team, what is his role? No one knows. He can't know. He didn't play any in the first 2 weeks. He comes in ready to play good football. 4 pressures in the game. Second on the team in pressures against Louisville in the biggest home game of the season. He is a third team player, highly recruited player, ready to play good football when his number came up. He is going to be a huge factor for Notre Dame for the rest of the season. Like, the amount of respect that he has from everybody from his teammates. When you're ready to go in that situation and you are an upperclassman and you have an underclassman ahead of you, like Boubacar, who, like, everyone knows is the future, and he obviously knows he's the future. So much respect for him, for the way that he has come in and been ready to go and played good football. I think that is, like, we highlight guys like Jalen Snead who are unhappy. We don't know that Jadarian Price. We don't know his mindset, but it's like he's in a situation where he could be unhappy. Junior Tuli Halamaka could absolutely was a person who could have been disgruntled, not locked in, going through the motions in practice. My role, like, I'm going to be out of here, basically. And then he gets his chance, and he makes huge plays against Miami. He makes huge plays against Louisville. Again, 4 pressures on the game. There is so much respect that I have for that, and just the mindset, and just like the type of teammate that he is. And everyone respects good teammates. And if you want a great teammate as far as your media company, Jamie, then you go to VSR Media. They got the best situation over there. Founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh, VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574 800 9106. Let's see. There was a question here. John Imperial asks, I wanted to check this. Anybody see where Pendleton got hurt? I was at the game and didn't notice and watched the replay last night. Still couldn't find it. So Freeman said he got rolled up at some point. I watched the replay of the screen touchdown because that was the last play before before they go back out there. He's running down on the screen.
He's running down there. Yeah.
I didn't see anything where he run down to celebrate the touchdown. I don't know what happened there.
No, there was. I mean, it wasn't because that was the last play he played, right? So,
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he got rolled up on before, and then he was just like just pure adrenaline going through it. So that could have been the case. But I didn't see the play that happened. And somebody asked about Sullivan Absher too. It was like, I mean, Absher was in also the most difficult spot you could ever get in. It's like, hey, we're gonna try to close it out with get a couple first downs here. Okay, you got to step into the game right at the end of the game. You're ice cold. You haven't done anything this whole game. Step in and play here. I thought you played hard. That's all you can say. Like he played hard. He like got after it, but he was like out of control when he was doing it and got kind of like put on the ground but that was like kind of what you expect when a guy gets put in the game at that juncture.
To your point on that too, like people are upset about Notre Dame being conservative in that spot. Third team guard out there. Like you can't just you can't just like dial up some exotic play. You don't know how he's going to react in pass protection. You don't know how he's going to react to like a different type of running plays. He hasn't played. This is your third team guard amongst a bunch of second team players. Like to me, I was totally fine with how they tried to play it. Okay. They needed to go conservative. There's a good chance that you can get a first down with Riley Leonard running the ball. I thought the rollout pass, I didn't love that. But at the same time, I understand what Marcus Freeman said afterwards is like, look, you either hit Mitchell Evans or you run the ball. You're not throwing it anywhere else.
Oh, yeah.
We're not in completion. So, they were leaning on the defense in that situation to get a stop, and they did. I don't know what was going on with Pendleton or whatever, but it's just hard for me to be like, you know what? Like they should have been more aggressive when you have Sullivan Absher in there. How many reps is he taking? Game plan reps is he taking in the week leading up, in any of the weeks leading up?
Yeah.
It's just like, you can't do something, you strip sack fumble or whatever, and now the team is down there. Like you got to be careful. And that we were talking about it when we were down there. Like how many first downs will it take to end the game? And I think it would have turned out to be 2. It would have been 2 first downs.
Yeah. And I think like there's the only kind of thing that they could have maybe done differently is maybe they run something that it's like, hey, we're going to run like influence where it looks like counter tray, and then we're coming back the other side and it's like a jet the other way. But then if the other team are out reading their keys and they're all blitzing, like that's what they were doing, they can get that could be a tackle for loss. It could be like a blown up in the back. It could be like there's a lot of things that could have, kind of went there. Maybe that hits and maybe whatever that kind of seals the game, but it's like, or it doesn't and you lose the game. Like, I don't know. And 100% the third down call was the right call. Like you do it where, hey, we're not going to drop you back. We're going to do this. If you roll, if the throw's there, throw it. If not, you eat it. And that's, the clock keeps running. They were out of timeouts. It was the right call in that situation. Like, and Mike brought it up on the power hour too. Like, they did the screen against Ohio State and it almost got picked. And like, and then also the clock didn't run. So like, don't be dumb.
If they had done that exact same sequence of plays against Ohio State last year, they will win the game.
Yes.
Because they wouldn't have had any incomplete passes.
There wouldn't have been the time would have ran out before they got that. Yeah. So
yeah. So it's sometimes being conservative, it's the right thing to do. Let's see. It's talking about people are talking about the Pendleton play. Greg Wasserman says, I worry about both Army and Navy. All D lines and O lines better wear knee braces because they cut block a lot. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's as prevalent as it used to be. I do worry about Army and Navy though, just generally.
They played really well. It's both of them.
They're going to be tough because here's the thing. And I said on the show yesterday, they play the type of way that is a good way to beat Notre Dame.
Yes.
They will run the clock. They will run the ball. They will run at Notre Dame. They will limit possession. If Notre Dame has like 1 or 2 empty possessions in this game, and I don't know that Navy's defense is all that great. Like they're giving up a lot of points, right? So there's that. But to me, like Navy, 1 or 2 stops against them might be good enough, but you got to be scoring on. You got to think about scoring on like every possession. Like you get punting in that game is just not the best idea unless you absolutely have to. You got to keep the ball, because you got to be in control. Navy's tough. I think Army is also good. They have a good defense. I'm telling you that those are real teams. I mean, I think after USC, I would say like Army and Navy are bigger threats than like Georgia Tech is, frankly, just because of the way that they play and the way that they can NIU the game up. They absolutely can. And that's a way to beat Notre Dame, given the fact that they're not a very explosive team throwing at the moment. So,
agreed.
Yeah. All right. I think that we can leave it there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please hit the like. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so wherever it is we're going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. We'll be back Thursday. Jamie, what do you think about a mailbag show Thursday?
I was thinking the same thing. I was going to say to you after the show.
Let's do it. Let's do it. We'll do a bi-week mailbag show on Thursday. So if you're an ISD subscriber, think about your questions and submit them in the thing, and we'll get going. All right. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.